Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me. I've got a few messages already in the chat, which is open to all. If you've got some questions, fire them in as we go through today's webinar. It's great to have so many of you on board today. We have opened this up to have guest presenters for really to look at the remote working in FinTech handbook that we put together on the hoof. Really, just put out an email to all our connections in the industry and in the FinTech industry to really see if we could get some contribution to what technology can do to help financial advisor and planner firms through turbulent times that we're going through at the moment with the pandemic. And I have to say I was very, very honoured and impressed with all the contributions. You can see at the bottom of the image on the left-hand side there, all the contributors to this paper. The paper is now available for download. We've already had just over 300 downloads of the paper so far. I'll give you the link a bit later on. So today is really an hour to talk in and around where advisor and planners are with this whole remote working issue and how technology can help. Now, technology, as I'm sure we're all aware, is it's a great enabler platform, but it's not magic. So at the end of the day, what we're going to talk about is any key issues, burning bridges you may have. And hopefully with the presentations, we'll be able to take a look at some solutions, if you're not already using them, that can help you moving forward. What it's important to mention is that, just a bit of housekeeping, we've muted everybody on the call. When we go to the presenters, we'll unmute as we go forward. As I say, if you've got any questions, the chat function is there. But the key issue with this is that if you're struggling on audio, we have put out an email, well, 2 emails this morning and 2 emails on the last 2 days regarding dialing in with the conference details. But hopefully everybody's on. I can't see anybody who's struggling at the moment on that, which is good. So really, we've all heard this term banded around regarding the new normal. Before I start, actually, we are recording this, so it will be available on our RegTech channel afterwards. I'll send the link out to everybody. So this new normal issue that, this phrase that has been banded around is kind of an interesting one, because what we've now begun to realize is that this is going to be with us for quite some time. And therefore, technology, as we can already see, is helping firms, connect, communicate like we are today on the internet. But the key issue with this is that what we're seeing is, there's far more key issues that firms need to be developing and focused on over time, because we've got we've got far more key burning bridges than probably we've had for quite some time. Markets have tanked. They may continue to, be very volatile over the next, year or two, down to the pandemic that we're facing. And the key issue with that as well is that obviously a lot of advisor and planner firms are very reliant on ad valorem income out of the funds and the assets under management that they hold, and that may be variable as it goes on. So, there are key issues around understanding financial ratios and resilience, and we'll talk a bit about that when I talk about RegTech from that side. So what we're looking at on this slide really is that we've got a consumer crisis potentially building, where there may be a trust issue with, what's going on with their pension funds, their investments and so forth. But also we've got, on the other side of the fence, the regulations are not going to stop, and there is, the need for you to comply as a business. So there's that pressure as well. So really, there's a lot of focus on the firm and the staff and the resilience, really, and sustainability of the model that you're operating. The FCA are certainly very much focused on operational resilience. As you can see, it's one of their key priorities that they put forward in their business planning in last year, this year. And really what we're interested in there is effectively they're very much focused on capital and liquidity buffers. You may think this is for the bigger firms. Well, it's not. They're very much focused on what smaller firms and medium-sized, the larger IFAs, planners and advisors are needing and requiring. So, we certainly think advisors and planners really need to take a close look and put the finger on the pulse on where they are on their financial ratios. And I'll talk about how RegTech, regulation technology, can help with that. But the key issue with this is that we just need to understand that the FCA are taking a close look at business models in particular through this process. They're also very, very concerned because at the heart of everything they do is consumer protection. So the financial crime, the frauds, the scams, the cyber crime that's ongoing, and how you're protecting yourself against that area as well is very important. Risk management has come to the fore. We've had a deluge of correspondence from our clients on Model Office and our RegTech platform about how to manage and identify, monitor and improve risk management. And it was certainly at the heart of what the FCA are doing with their principles-based framework. And they look at risk in this scenario where they're considering risk to be the combination of impact and the potential harm that can be caused, and the probability, the likelihood of a particular issue or event occurring. And in short, this is really designed, so that you can identify the main risks to your firm as they arise, measure the importance of that risk and mitigate the risks and monitor them on an ongoing basis. Our technology is designed to do that. We have, lots of heat map dashboards and action trackers and action plans and compliance diaries that are self-built through our RegTech platform. And the key issue with that is that we just need to understand, where the potential risks are. And the phrase unknown unknowns springs to mind as we go through this pandemic, and it's throwing up a lot of new issues that we may not have considered before. So it's very important that we start to look at where the risks are, how we're monitoring them, how we're managing them as this plays through into our income streams and into our business infrastructure, and obviously our client relationships as we go forward. The key issue with the FCA and COVID-19 in particular is business disruption. And I've mentioned the issue regarding capital and liquidity buffers. That's very important for firms to get it a handle on, no matter how small they are. So really, firms are now advising themselves on their financial ratios and the financial KPIs within the business. It's very important to plan strategically ahead. So business continuity planning is very important here, and looking at exit and wind down planning, God forbid, but unfortunately, it's a requirement anyway of the FCA rules that we need to have that in place. So you've got to make sure that's in place. I think the interesting thing with the FCA that they have come out with is some flexibility. So they've certainly looked at the SMCR and who can get involved there, and looking at the roles there on SMF 24, which is operational resilience, and SMF 1 CEs, chief execs, for example, most relevant, staff member to take responsibility for staff needs, roles, responsibilities, who does what in the business, making sure that's mapped out, key workers, if you have any key workers that you're responsible for, that comes into play there, and obviously responsibilities as client needs on an ongoing basis. I mean, I don't know any firm that's better, anyone that's better placed than you lot to manage your client needs, because you've got close, trusted partnership relationships with your clients. But very much the FCA are focused on that. They have brought in the flexibility around client ID, which I think is good, and I think that will drive through the use of technology in client identification on an ongoing basis. And also the debate that has heightened regarding wet signature or not, as the case may be. I think that's great. I think that's a good outcome that we can focus on. There's flexibility around the the dreaded MiFID II 10% depreciation notification rules, which in our opinion really should be retired. But at the end of the day, that's something which is good from that perspective, that the FCA have notified and looked at and basically acknowledged that once client has been reported to on any 10% depreciation, there's no need to continue to report on that on an ongoing basis until obviously the next following quarter. So that's interesting. So now we're going to move to look really focused on the topic of today and the topic of the paper that we published, which is around the use of technology in the market. We've got three great speakers coming up, and we're covering very different topics, which is good. We've got obviously Max Maxwell from IRESS talking about practice management solutions and how that can help streamline your business practice during these times. We've got Rob Tedder talking really about cash flow modeling and what the good work that I4C are up to in that and client engagement. And then we've got Nick Hall talking from Wealth Wizards really about how they're engaging clients and using technology to do that and keep clients close. But the key issue with technology, in more ways than one, as I've mentioned at the start of today's presentation, it's not magic, but put together well. And if you've done your research and due diligence around this process, then it acts as a great enabler platform for you really to ensure that you are managing the risk, you're managing the resilience issues, you're focused on your clients, and you're keeping them close. And tech done well, it can offer a streaming and joined up approach across those issues I've mentioned, and also it can offer that financial stress test scenario that I've talked about. Just to give you an idea of how we do it, we have a financial ratio diagnostic on our RegTech platform that we've now made available. It's free, and what thing we did in the paper actually was we asked all contributors to see if they could offer anything as a unique proposition at this moment in time for advice and advisor firms. And what we have done is we've made the financial ratios free. So if you're interested in that, we'll give you the details at the end that you can fire in, and we will send them over to you. But what that's essentially designed to do is looking at things like recurring income, trail incomes, gross and net profits. It will look at advisor productivity, assets under management splits, and give an overall view on how sustainable and resilient the business is, and also give a business value, EBITDA, percentage of assets, and recurring revenues. So at the end of the day, it's really designed to give a high-level view, if you like, a diagnostic and heat map view of where you sit as a business. Obviously, one of the FCA focuses is around the sustainability and viability of your business. And I know you've done a lot of good work on the SMCR regarding systems and controls and roles and responsibilities. But again, we'd urge you to revisit all this because the FCA are very, very keen for firms to ensure that they've got robust systems and operations in play. So you basically need to looking at key areas around, your board, your committees, how you're communicating to staff, how you're delegating, handing over. We're all a lot of us are now working remote. Some IFAs and planners and financial institutions have gone down the furlough route. So there are demands and new challenges that we are facing. So internal and external communication is very important from that point of view, and roles and responsibilities can help with that. And running regular meetings like these online, I just read a report this morning in the Financial Times that Microsoft has seen 2 years worth of productivity in 2 months, down to their Teams software that they have, which is their collaborative online software, so video software. So at the end of the day, we've got to be looking at how technology can help with this and how we can help us work smart in our remote working, and also how we're outsourcing on an ongoing basis. How are we continuing to use power planners? What resources are we continuing to use regarding keeping our research and development around our centralized investment propositions, our centralized retirement propositions? Have you got NEDs involved? Any remote workers involved in consultancy in the business? And obviously, finally, as we're talking about, is technology and how that can help with all this going forward. So really, the key issue on this is looking at, have you got a resilient framework in play? And that really covers these key areas on here regarding the risk management stuff that we've talked about, the cyber risks that we've talked about, which is on the up at the moment, how technology can help, looking at business continuity, disaster recovery, wind down planning, looking at the scenario analysis that you can actually plan ahead using technology, and RegTech, and certainly our RegTech can help with that. If you're outsourcing, looking at the risks and the opportunities with outsourcing, and then incident management reporting on an ongoing basis. Because where we are now is this new normal, where we are all working in a very different way, which will probably become the way we're going to work for quite some time now. So therefore, we've got to take a look at where we are as a business regarding the rules and the compliance factors, as well as the client and the staff and personnel development and engagement. So from that side of things, it's spinning even more plates and it's juggling more balls. But again, you've probably got a lot of good practice in. So we'd recommend you focus here around board composite decision-making processes, looking at avoiding groupthink, looking at challenge to where you're going as a business, looking at your business continuity and recovery plans on an ongoing basis. Mention the research and due diligence processes that you've got, which is also very important if you're looking at applying new technology into the business. Looking at key areas regarding obviously client suitability and how you're measuring the attitude to risk, capacity for loss, and how that technology can help with that. Risk registers, complaints registers, conflict of interest policies, data security, remuneration policies, and best execution policies. All these areas, business continuity planning, are still very, very important, probably of heightened importance right now. So I would certainly recommend you revisit them, take a look at them as a business, and make sure that they're tweaked on an ongoing basis so that they help you through this process, so you've got this resilience testing framework in play, and also you're meeting the rules and regulations, because all this is already in the rules and regulations. We've just stipulated a couple there: PRIN 2.1.13R and CIS 3.1.1R. So at the end of the day, this is the type of stuff that the regulator are expecting you to be doing. So RegTech, I'm really just going to focus at a high-level view. This gives an idea of the outputs from our particular technology. And RegTech, regulation technology, comes in many shapes and forms. But what we really do is focus on what firms, we allow firms effectively to self-audit and benchmark where they believe they are against all the rules and regulations in one place. Once they've benchmarked and audited, they never have to do it again, because as we update the system with the new rules and regulations, you're going to get automated nudges through. It also gives an automated action plan and action tracker so that you know what to focus on next and know what to do. You can upload files onto the key issues. You can delegate responsibility to the most senior people responsible for these areas, so you're meeting all the SMCR roles and responsibility requirements. And you can build your own, as I say, compliance diary with this. So all the key actions that you need to do over the year from a compliance perspective are allocated to your diary automatically. So you're going to get it flagged up, so you're not going to miss anything on an ongoing basis from that side of things. You get lots of heat map dashboards, and you also get a chatbot that you can engage in as well to ask more questions. And finally, but not least, we integrate with third-party technology. So we're currently integrated with Intelligent Office. We are speaking to others such as IRESS to allow us to streamline some more regulatory reports. So, for example, we can streamline data quality health checks and run an overnight report on what missing data, duplication data there is in the system. So there's lots that RegTech can do to help streamline this area about operational resilience in your business. So I'd invite you all to take a look at this area, because it's certainly a growth area, and we've had far more interest in what we do, certainly since the pandemic started. So really what we're interested in that firms are doing is looking at a continuous cycle of improvement. And so that really focuses on looking at your audit processes, looking at how you're identifying issues, the risk management processes come into play there, operational resilience, financial resilience, and so forth. Then what we can do is get the technology in play to identify not only the issues, but the root causes, and then start to recommend responses automatically for you, so that you can then form some form of resolution as a business, and know, most importantly, that you're compliant, know that you're resilient, know that you're sustainable through this process, and you're building a really high quality operational cultural response to the pandemic as we move forward. The key issues with any form of compliance is 4I sense check and lines of defense. So from that side of things, accountability is first and foremost with the S&CR. That's not going to go away. And so that's with the firm itself. And then you've got second line of defenses, as I've talked about, regarding 4I sense checks, and that could be internal compliance departments, risk departments, operational departments, and so forth, HR departments, for example, or it can be outsourced third line of defense, which is independent assurance. And that's where certainly technology sits, RegTech sits. The last couple of slides from me before I hand over. Really, operational resilience is important. Take a look at where your strengths and weaknesses are, highlighting your weaknesses, learning from them, looking at blind spots, and then building out to strengths is important. So I always say at the heart, it's a very popular slide, this one. We tend to put it in a lot of presentations, but it speaks to what you lot tend to do really, really well. So we've got the financial planning right in the heart and center, the advice processes right in heart and center of your business model, looking at how then you can streamline that out, whether it's using cash flow, whether it's using robo, whether it's using practice management technologies, and so forth. And then you've got the investment management services and the auxiliary services outside of that you're involved in and operating for your clients. And then finally, but not least, then you've got the support services, the governance services, the technology, the compliance issues that you've got wrapped around the business model. So what I've asked everybody to look at and do who's presenting today is offer some practical planning points that you can take away and apply straight away to your business. So ours are really about asking the right questions. The top of this slide, you can see what we call our 5 R's, which is all about regulation, compliance, risk management. We talked about revenues, financial stresses on the business. Reputational management is obviously key at this moment in time, and also retention, which involves your clients and also your staff. So asking the right questions, I think, is probably one of the most important things firms need to do to ride through the storm as we get through this, and continue to ask those questions, whether it's internally or externally, looking at who else is out there that can help you and support you through this process, which is a very nice lead in to the next slide, where I'm going to start to introduce our presenters. So without further ado, and this is where technology comes into its own, I'm going to unmute Max Maxwell. So Max, let me know, are you on, Max? Can you hear me?
I'm unmuted. If you could unmute Mark Loosemore as well, please, Chris. That would be good.
Audio,
yeah. Sorry?
Mark isn't connected to the audio.
Okay, that's fine. We were going to give you
on the line. Landline.
Yeah, we were going to give you 2 for the price of 1, so it'll just be yeah. So thanks, Chris. That was a really good summary of the challenges we're all facing. So do you want me to lead into my slides?
Yeah. Sorry. There you go.
So huge thank you to everybody for taking the time out today. Got about 10 minutes to walk you through just some ideas. And IRESS obviously offers advises a whole range of technology solutions for practice management and advice. What we wanted to do was share some of our experience working with our clients and their customers, and to give you some ideas that you can take forward. And we've captured that in the document that Chris kindly pulled together. And I see the other two speakers will be giving you equally some ideas. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of areas that we're seeing people adopt and why they're adopting that in their suite of tech. So Chris, if you don't mind just passing on. I guess the first part of this is just thinking around how have we as a business adapted to this. We're lucky, we have a very flexible structure. Mark, I think you're unmuted now. Do you want to pick up from here and just have a chat? No, I don't think Mark's audio has come through, Chris, so I'll carry on. So our internal culture is I guess the first area, and I would counsel all of the audience to start thinking around how your business has adopted and adapted to this change. So we have a very flexible and collaborative approach, but an online first approach has really helped us. So we've seen very little drop in activity, even though we've had to close offices and move people to home. The investment in mobile technology has been really useful. But we've seen a massive adoption. We use Zoom and Slack extensively throughout the business to maintain our communications. We've seen a massive uplift in our customers' use of video functionality, and we'll touch on that as we go through. We are also a very collaborative business using the Gmail and G Suite of functionality, and of course our own practice management system, Xplan. And more recently, we've adopted Miro boards, so whiteboards, to help us manage projects and activity as we go through. And we've also focused around business continuity planning. So, our focus has been making sure that our customers and our clients can maintain their relationship with their businesses and aligning the use of resource. So again, the learn from ourselves is how we then help our firms adopt and take that into their own businesses. So Chris, if you'd like to page on.
Max, I think can you hear me?
Yep, you're back. So if you want to take it from here.
Perfect. Sorry, guys, I was dialed in on another number, so they couldn't recognize me. But just to continue on from where Max was saying, the whole thing we're facing now is that the service that our clients and the IFAs in the market are facing at the moment is actually critical service. And it's at this time you want those people to become more available to their clients. But actually, because of the whole COVID work at home lockdown environment, a lot of people are actually less available. So we're really looking at how we can help clients become more available and more present with their clients. So I don't know if you can move on to the next slide. So one of the key ways that we're seeing people wanting to address that is by launching client portals. Now, many people have had those in place already, but still a surprising number of people are looking at that as a new way of going forward. Now, there is a number of options that are available to the market to do that. One option is to work with your back office provider. So certainly we would encourage our clients to work with us, either with Xplan or Advisor Office Client Portal, but IntelliFlow have the same capability. There is also very legitimate offerings from third party that are specialists in that environment. They tend to solve slightly different problems. So I would say if you're looking at trying to draw the client very much into your environment, then I would say that back office systems will have a best way of doing that. So you'll be able to display documents produced during the advice process out automatically in a much more seamless way by doing that. However, a number of those third-party systems are very good in that financial concierge type methodology. They may do a little bit more in terms of linking to the tax office to get renewals, reminders for car tax and things like that. So the two often work in harmony. They'll tend to be a premium price for getting the third-party system in. So sometimes we're seeing some clients using those for maybe a few of their clients, and then the mass market of their clients being bought into the client portal to where they're trying to drive and save costs. Lots of interesting functioning on the client portal to take use of. Max, I don't know if you want to talk through some of those ideas.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, let's reflect on what we've seen. So we've seen a huge adoption of client portal from clients who were using it to some extent as a proof of concept within their business, and using different layers with different clients. So some are just using a message and document portal to communicate. Others providing reassurance that they're still in business through offering the portal, and more recently the adoption of digital signatures and digitization of documents. The digital signature functionality is a really key win in ensuring that we've got an auditable trail of client consent and activity running through the business. And it's very easy to deploy, but it's a huge boon to businesses looking to ensure that they've got continuity. And I think, Mark, we've got some great examples within our own client bank, haven't we, of how that digitization has made a difference?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen is, and a nice side effect of this, is the removal of paper. So, documents now can be securely put on the portal with a message telling people to log on to get those documents. And actually, the amount of paper that is being produced by some of our clients now has drastically reduced. So I was speaking to one client that was reduced their number of pages printed each year by over 10 million pages for each of those documents. So that's a massive benefit, not just to the advisor and the client, but also to the planet as well at the moment. So it's good to see those sort of things coming through as well. So our first takeaway would be to say, look at client portal and look at the way that can work within your business. Use it to engage people into your processes. So before a review or something like that, get them to change the information or tell you what information has changed before you go out and see them. Maybe getting them to look at fact finds and stuff. Right the way down to in the future, maybe getting them to do some ED, ISA investment type journeys electronically as well. Not replacing face-to-face, but complementing it. So, Chris, I think we can go on to our second area, which was really looking at how we can embrace video conferencing. That's something, again, we've seen a huge demand for. And as a business, we really like video conferencing. I remember this being talked about probably 20 years ago in the industry. I'm far too old for my own good, really. But I remember when, I think it was then called Norwich Union or CGNU, that was looking at launching video conferencing because certain parts of their client bank didn't want an advisor in their home. And they were looking at approaching single women through the video mechanism because that was more approachable and a safer way of communicating. Now, COVID sent this through the roof, and we're seeing far, far more use of this across the industry than ever before. Our takeaway, though, is don't just use this to do a normal face-to-face call, which is going to become across maybe a bit dull and not engaging enough. See what tools you've got that you can share the screens of as well as doing the face-to-face contact. And in that way, you can actually make these far more engaging. Chris, if you can go on to the next slide, we can actually show how that works a little bit. Max, do you want to talk about some of the collaboration tools that you've been showing people to share in these type of screens?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So we'd already developed some functionality we call Prime, but also how we enable some of our planning tools. And I know that Rob and the guys will also talk about their functionality. Using that video meeting effectively requires you to think about what you're presenting to the customer, both in terms of your brand, your look and feel. Don't turn up in your pajamas, but also the tools that you use. So we, amongst others, have developed a range of engaging but digitally focused tools to allow that to happen. So if you're an existing Xplan user or Advisor Office user, happy to guide you through that. Or if you're not using us, to think about how you use these digital tools to actually engage the customer through the advice journey, replacing paper and the traditional suitability document and recommendation with a much more online and an engaging process. So, Chris, if you'd like to move on.
And of course, we should say that by using video conferencing as well, you're saving that travelling time. So even beyond COVID, it has huge benefits, and also again for the environment, less travelling is better for all. So the final point we just wanted to talk about was actually then using the practice management systems capabilities that you have to actually manage your workloads. Because at the moment, if anything, workloads are increasing. You have the same regulatory burdens or similar regulatory burdens, and yet you've got resources that are working in a completely different environment that can make that challenging. By using your practice management systems to automate some of your tasks, but even if you're not automating, using B to sort of manage the tasks, manage where that tasks are passed to, so that you have some control over who is doing what, but you can also maintain visibility of where the workload is, where that workload's getting done quickly, where maybe there are some blockages in your workflows, and use good MI to really check that your business is still behaving in an effective way in the new working environment. I think that's a massive benefit in this environment. So look at what areas you can automate. Simple things like confirming meetings the day before the meeting's going to happen, an SMS text will be sent by the system to confirm it. We expect that sort of thing from a dentist appointment, pre-COVID from a hairdresser would give you a reminder. Yet so often we're not doing that in our financial planning world. So making sure you automate those simple tasks, those simple emails and communications out to people is really important. And then look at what tasks you can start moving around your users, ideally dynamically, is also absolutely key. If you pull all that together, so you pull the video conferencing together, together with your client portal, together with some workflow, I think on the next slide, Chris, we can show some of the size of benefits you can get as you're looking at a case study. Max, do you want to talk through the case study?
Yeah, and Paul Miles has put a couple of really important comments. COVID and lockdown aside, it's about enabling the best way that you work with your clients. So many of the tools, those collaboration tools that I showed earlier, are used by advisors in a face-to-face environment, but it's giving ourselves the opportunity to do a combination of both and using them appropriately. So we've been working with a number of our firms before lockdown, but also interestingly during lockdown to try and automate processes and try and automate regular activities, particularly things like client reviews. We spend 80%, 90% of our time with our existing clients, and we're seeing that automation reducing the typical advice time from around 10.5 hours to down to around 2. And that's really enabling the advisor to add value in terms of the customer-facing meeting, applying their skills in needs analysis and engagement, but using systems and functionality to help streamline the process. Now, not every piece of advice will get down to 2 hours, but it really is a challenge for all of us to see how we can use different layers of our technology stack to help us drive efficiencies, which means we can do more with our existing clients more effectively and more profitably, and engage them in the best way possible. So these surveys have been really quite enlightening to us, but people are using this opportunity in lockdown to look at the areas that they want to focus that drive and efficiency.
I think that's probably our time up, Chris. So back to you.
That's very much appreciated, Mark and Max. Thanks so much for your time there, and some great tips and strategies for advisor firms, planner firms. Yeah, and some good interaction on, particularly from Paul Miles. Thanks for your questions. Right, we're going to now, and as I say, that we're recording today, so all this will be available to you on our RegTech channel, and we'll email that out to you. So now what I'm going to do is pass over to Rob Tedder. Always a bit of a drum roll moment. Hopefully, Rob, can you hear me?
I can, Chris. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Good news.
Good.
It works. Right, there's your slides. Off you go.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Rob from I4C Technology. We're a cash flow provider, which you may or may not have heard of. Just to give you a little mini background on me, I used to be a power planner. So I've fully experienced the value that cash flow can add to a business and the transformational impact it can have on revenue within a firm. 10 minutes is obviously a very short time. I could talk about cash flow for days if I had to, but I'll try and sort of narrow it down as much as possible. If you go on to the next slide, Chris, I can give a bit of background as to what we'll speak about today. So really it's going to go about challenges. We're going to go through some other bits and pieces around actually how you can address some of these challenges, the value that cash flow can add, and just what we're doing in terms of helping our users. I think the key thing at the moment is obviously we've all talked about the fact that there's a changing or a massively changed landscape that we're all working in. I don't think we should detract. I think, yes, it's challenging, but actually there's massive positives that people are taking out of this, both on a personal level, from connecting with family, friends, on a remote level that they would never even consider before, and it's reconnecting people. I think that can also be used from the financial services industry. I think there's a number of ways, and actually the challenge of working from home is also presenting a positive in the fact that you've probably got more time available to you because you're not commuting, you're not traveling. Therefore, you've actually got a lot more time to be able to focus on developing client relationships and evolving existing client relationships and taking on new clients as well, potentially. It doesn't have to be a barrier taking on new clients. I think the key thing that when we're speaking to our users is that there's a massive range of opinions as to how clients want to be treated. There are some clients that they'll have had their 10% drop letters, their MiFID II review letters, and that's triggered a phone call to the advisor to say, well, actually, how am I affected by the current situation? The visibility and transparency of the fees coming through to them bring all sorts of questions. And actually, it's how you deal with that and how cash flow potentially help with the engagement. Obviously, Max has talked a lot about engagement of clients and actually using the tools available to you to be able to demonstrate the value you're adding from a client perspective, the planning you're putting in place. And I think actually having that time available, using technology way is really important to be able to basically share your screen, share the value that you're presenting to clients. On top of that, consistency and compliance is a massive kind of ongoing headache in terms of actually just making sure that everybody's working in the same way. Everybody's working from the same sort of set, consistent approach, same level of assumptions, all the different types of information that they should be using in processes. They're actually doing them. They might not be in the office, but they should all be working the same way to deal with the different ways that clients want to interact with you. Some will say to you, actually, I want to talk to you about this. Others will say, actually, I want to concentrate on personal. They're fully kind of on board with the long-term nature of financial planning. They're built into that sort of long-term financial plan. So they're actually just focusing on personal, family, and actually making the most of spending time with people. And then you've got others that are actually seeing this as a great opportunity or a distraction away from the current circumstances. I think it's actually a great time to be contacting clients. I'm sure most of you have probably already contacted clients, just to kind of give an overview of what you're doing, how we can help, and actually engaging in different types of conversations. And this is where cash flow can massively come in and help enhance that, that engagement and interaction with the clients. And almost, if they haven't had their cash flow light bulb moment, which I'll come on to in a second, they get to that stage now because they've got the time to actually sit back and think about potentially what they're doing. Of course, it depends on if they've got children at home and they're trying to homeschool and everything else, but again, it can be a distraction to that. And that all comes down to the remote delivery of how you present that service. I think when we've done a number of different conferences and sessions with firms and different networks, different audiences, and there seems to be a running theme, and actually probably 50%, 75% of the audience will be doing some form of cash flow modeling. And then you start drilling down into it a bit further. You ask them actually then who's actually doing it for all their clients. It probably halves again. And actually who's presenting cash flow live to clients? It's probably only actually about 25% of the audience. And that seems to be a consistent thing that goes through. And the biggest challenge, I think, from that is actually understanding the technology and understanding and not wanting to look silly in front of clients because you don't necessarily have the time to invest in understanding the technology that's in place and what you're using. So actually having the extra time from the lack of commute and everything else, businesses are starting to look at the fact that actually, they want to review processes, they want to review tech, they want to review everything that's going on, and they're using their advisors, power planners that have actually potentially got some time to look at different bits of technology alongside improving the sort of the client proposition, enhancing it, and actually molding it essentially around. I think going back to where Chris was talking about the sort of the business operations mapping, it's getting all those processes in place to make sure you're looking at the right stuff at the right time. If you go to the next slide, Chris. So this is just a very quick one on the value that cash flow can add remotely to clients. I think we very much of the opinion, I've seen it myself. Cash flow should be, in my mind, for all clients. I don't see why you would potentially give it to one and not the other. I think it's as valuable for Joe Blogs on the street as it is to all your high net worth clients. And actually, it's possibly more valuable to those that have actually got a lot more closer sort of situations to consider. Some clients will be talking to you and actually saying, what's the impact? They'll have seen the headlines. There will be some clients that have seen the headlines in the FTSE drop by 35% in a week or something. They'll be not panicking, but they'll be having questions about how that impacts their plans. We've had advisors and users come on to us and say, well, actually, in 5 minutes, they've done a quick screen share meeting with the client, gone through their cash flow and demonstrated that actually the reduced valuation plus extra shocks that you could put along the way has made pretty much zero difference to their long-term nature of their plan. It's reinforcing that message that clients should be focusing on 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years rather than 1, 2, 3 weeks, months, etc. What we find is actually whether you're sat face-to-face with a client or whether you're actually sat on a video call with them, the client, you can engage with them in the same way with the technology in place. It's understanding actually how you go through and actually the engagement that cash flow can bring along, improving the fact-finding process, asking different questions, actually helps them to sort of almost have a different kind of relationship with you. Obviously, if you're already adopting cash flow planning, great, and you'll probably have already experienced this already. But they actually, not that they don't trust you already, but it's basically giving them an extra element of trust and reinforcement in terms of the information that you provided with them, in terms of the visuals and the graphs and everything else that's pulling through. And I think the key thing is it's empower them, it's giving them information to make informed decisions. I think it's not necessarily, cash flow isn't the be-all and end-all of every client circumstance, but it's a guide to help form decisions in the future. Have you gone to the next slide, Chris? Again, just to touch on business value and then the advisor value as well. It varies across different roles, but consistency of process, making sure that assumptions are all consistent across the board. Reducing risk, reducing room for human error, reducing room sort of compliance issues with sort of growth rates, inflation rates. Everybody's using the same different set of data. Time efficiency advisors we've already touched on in terms of actually just building up time that advisors can take on new clients and actually engage with their existing clients more. I think the key things from cash flow from a business perspective is one, compliance we touched on, but then the second one is differentiator. Not everybody in the market, as I touched on already, is running cash flow plans with their clients. So if you can master it, if you can take it out to clients, not take it out to them, but deliver it remotely at the moment and then turn that into sort of taking it out to clients, we will never lose the face-to-face engagement, I think, was Mark was touching on, or Paul certainly mentioned on the chat, because there isn't always going to be an element of human interaction that we're going to need, but video conferencing will help bridge that gap and help make time efficiency more important. But differentiating yourself away from other advisors and planners that aren't necessarily running cash flow meetings live and getting that level of engagement will in turn increase revenue. You'll be able to go out, win more pitches, be able to go out to accountancy firms, professional trustees, solicitors, all those different types of revenue opportunities, and present your proposition to them and how you're different to other planning firms. Financial wellbeing is massive at the moment. Getting in and almost offering cash flow as a bespoke service that can go to big business or to businesses in the local area, which then grows it. Basically give cash flow as a benefit to their staff. Demonstrate actually by putting this much auto-enrollment, this much into your pension, you will get to this level by age 65 or whatever age the client's objectives are. That in turn then gets you to grow your reputation within that business, and then you can get into the directors, managing partners, and then it evolves there and you get a lot more sort of potential leads from that one. That's just one aspect that we've considered. Advisor value, I think it's the massive enhancement to the client relationship. I do think you get better conversations using cash flow plan because you're delving into different questions rather than just sort of thinking about should I transfer this pension to that pension, or it's when educate my children, or just something kind of generalistic. Is thinking about what is your bucket list and what do you want to achieve out of life. Do you want to go and watch the French Open in Paris? Do you want to travel around the world on your retirement birthday, if you like? Do you want to have massive parties, help your kids out with house deposits, gifts to the children whilst you're still alive? It's demonstrating kind of the impact that you can have on a client's lifestyle and actually enhancing their how they use their assets and how they can use it over the course of the next 20 years, even if it's just spending more money. demonstrating to a client they can spend potentially an extra £5,000 a year could be life-changing for them. And actually using cash flow to do that is massively important. And the important thing there is if a client asks you in a meeting, to be able to do that real time using a cash flow tool is massively important, because it saves, you've got that engagement, you've captured that interaction there and then, and you haven't got to go back and forwards between the two meetings. If you go on to the next slide, Chris. Thank you. There seems to be a barrier, I think I touched on this earlier on, where there seems to be a barrier where planners don't necessarily want to present cash flow live to clients. It's often used as a back office tool, which I think is a fine starting point. I think having cash flow within the business is a good point to start with, but I think actually the engagement and interaction is massively important to the client relationship. It shouldn't be restricted just to face-to-face meetings. Doing it remotely is very easy. I think there's a very simple process that you can follow. We recommend kind of a client health check, run through the baseline scenario, the current situation of the client, and actually make sure, are they on course to meet their sort of general goals that they've got in place? Spending, sustainability. Sustainability isn't is the starting point, I think, for a cash flow plan, and then you build it from there. You want to show stress testing, death, illness, spend more, spend less, care fees, go through the sort of stress testing, market events. And after all that's been through that, put your recommendations in place and actually how you're going to mold their financial plan. Whether it's through wrappers, whether it's through spending more, whether it's through retiring early, it's demonstrating the impact of that advice, whether it's structuring your income. Show them the tax benefit. They might pay less tax in their lifetime, which is money in their pocket. It might be IHT savings. It might be just general asset value increased. It's understanding the 3 stages to go through. And then when you actually run the meeting, I think there's a danger of overcomplicating it. So actually just take control of the meeting. Have in your mind a very simple flow of which graphs you want to go through and which you want to go and speak to the client about. You'll already know your client. You'll know the types of conversations they're probably already thinking about. And actually, if you have that flow in your mind, you can present it to them. And actually, it's just a case of tweaking the graph, the scenarios that you've already built. I think if everybody's using the same tool, I think is very important from a compliance aspect and consistent approach. Sharing user feedback between users is really important. You get your success stories, you get your wins, you get your example clients that you've used it with, how you use it, different graphs and how they sort of share different levels of engagement, the sort of types of flow you'd have. Get that level of discussion up with the technology you're using. So it's not just a case of a prescriptive, do this, do this, do this. It can evolve as you go through the client relationship. Finally, just client portals. I know Mark and Max have touched on this already. It's massively important, I think, to be able to share information with your clients, whether that's just visuals from your tools, visuals into the client portal, getting them engaged whilst you're not with them, something to give them that actually gives them context in the conversations you've had. And if you go to the next slide, Chris. Support that we've given over the last sort of 6 weeks and sort of ongoing sort of prior to that. Online community, we've got all sorts of different webinars, questions, articles, videos, which we give to our users. We've actually extended that to become a face-to-face online cash flow forum. So it's something we thought, well, actually, for our users to know that we're always online between 2 and 3 with a face they can come online and talk to in a video meeting. Some people are, believe it or not, getting sick of video meetings, I think. There's a danger of overdoing it, but I think if you want to see a face and actually engage with someone on a cash flow, ask some questions directly, we put that live out to our clients. And it's been really important. It's been really useful to them so far. We've had some really good conversations and really good attendance on those. We're calling our users and basically just actually saying, how are you getting on? Are there any sort of ways that we can help you to actually get to that remote presentation stage with your cash flow model? I think you can't underestimate the power it can have at the moment in reassuring clients and helping them out to make decisions. And we've actually formed some compliance manual templates to actually put in place the level of assumptions, the types of scenarios, the types of planning, the processes you should put in place when using a cash flow tool. And that's been made available to our users. And if you aren't aware of I4C, we do have a free trial which you can have a little play with. Even if it's just a case of actually try and see if cash flow is for you in terms of just presenting it to your clients and how you might use it. It is a good tool. I think technology has got a view of sometimes being there as a hindrance, and I think there's a lot of products out there now which are getting to the point where they're realizing they need to be easy to use but visual clients, and that's kind of where we're aiming to go. So I'm going to leave you with one last slide. If Chris you can skip on to the last one. It's just a quote from one of our users, which is purely around how cash flow has helped him over the last few months. Again, this could be applied to any cash flow tool. There's many different ones in the marketplace, but it's just demonstrating actually sort of adjustments live to clients and actually providing the outcomes in real time to them, which they can actually think about there and then and actually prompt more questions there with you live. And it just brings everything to life, their financial plan. So on that, thank you for your time, and I'll hand back to Chris to pass on to Nick.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rob. You've got a couple of good questions here, actually. I've put the planning points up on this slide here so that you might want to just quickly run through those. But Paul Miles has come out with a couple of good questions, particularly around paraplanners. Is this something paraplanners could do online with clients as advisors not always used to tech and clients? Advantage of this could be team effort with the paraplanner and bring the paraplanner to the fore. So that's an interesting one. And also Mike Powell's basically come out with a great comment. Now we're talking my language. Lifestyle financial planning is often what's missing within a cash flow modeling flow projections. So I think they're important. Just run through,
absolutely.
Run through very quickly your planning points, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, planning points really just advice is being consistent across the whole firm is crucial. Just so that everybody is using kind of one process for the clients. Demonstrating impact to reassure clients is really easy using cash flow tools, and just engagement, giving them clarity and actually understanding the value you're providing to them is crucial. Just on Paul's point, just to answer that question quickly, is it something paraplanners can do? Absolutely. When I was a paraplanner, we used to have joint meetings with the paraplanner and the advisor. Like you said, it absolutely increases the engagement with the team. It's not just the advisor being the relationship manager and the sort of the face of it. Actually, the paraplanner is often a very technical support base in the background, and quite often the techie person. So actually, paraplanners having contact with clients, I'd massively encourage that going forward. I think cash flow is a good way of doing that alongside the advisor.
Thank you very much, Rob. I mean, Mark Loosemore actually from IRESS has come in as well, which is an interesting comment saying that IRESS have two interfaces to their cash flow tools at IRESS, one for detailed analysis and one for designed for online sharing. That can make it much easier to demonstrate online and give advisors more confidence. So yeah, I think the key area, actually Mark's alluded to it there, it's enabling and empowering the advisors to have the confidence to use the technology online in front of clients. And from my days as an advisor, as a financial advisor and a wealth manager for 9 on 12 years with Towery Law, mainly actually overseas in Hong Kong. But we used technology extensively back then, basic technology, Citrix style models, but it always seemed to work. And we had some advisors and planners who their USPs, they never saw their clients. They did it online. Great. Thanks for that, Rob. That was really useful indeed. And again, just to reiterate, all this will be recorded and online, so you'll be able to review it again at your leisure. Now, what I'm now going to do is hopefully, another drum roll moment, bring in Nick from Wealth Wizards. So I've unmuted you, Nick. Can you hear me? Hello, Nick. We can't hear you, Nick. You might have to phone in on the landline with the conference ID, which we've sent over to you. You're showing green on our system. Hello, Nick. This is where technology comes into its own, isn't it? Nick, can you hear? You're showing green on our side, so all's well our side. I don't quite know what's going on your side of the fence. Do you want to phone in, Nick? Just while Nick's sorting himself out from that side of things, just to let you know, we've got more of these coming up because we had over, I think we had 17 contributors to our paper, which was amazing, and we're going to be running a few of these through these tricky times for advisor firms. So if you find this useful, please do let other firms that you may know in your networks about the forthcoming events that we've got. We'll let you know. For the next one, we're going to be inviting other contributors in. So far, we have Money Info interested who have the client portal. We have Octo members. For those of you who are on or know of Octo members or do not know Octo members, they run a really good session for network, online network for financial planners and advisors. So they're really good. And we've got one more who will come in, hopefully. So we're going to have 3. I'm still waiting for Nick, and unfortunately, I don't see Nick as online. So, Nick, can you hear me? No, there's a problem with Nick's line. So, what I suggest that we do with this is we call it to an end anyway, because we're coming to 12 o'clock. And Nick and Wealth Wizards, I'm sorry it didn't work your end. It was working fine when we trialed it the other day. But what we'll do is we will invite you on to our next one and make sure that the technology works your end, so that you can contribute as you've kindly, obviously put together your slide presentation for today. So it just remains me to thank you all very much. I will send out the recording of this to you, and then we will effectively let you know when the next live webinar will be. We normally do it once every 2 weeks. So hopefully if you find it useful, you will ping it on to other people. Have a great bank holiday weekend. It all merges into one at the moment, doesn't it? But enjoy your bank holiday weekend and stay safe out there. Thanks so much for your time today.